You're welcome to Tree Talk episode 140. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. It's a huge weekend of GAA action. We have the Limerick Senior Footballers bidding to get back to Division 2. We have the ladies footballers in semi-final action, and so are the junior camogie side. The hurlers round after their campaign. We have the Junior A hurling final from 2020 to be played, and a tribute to Shawnee Tobin, so do stay tuned.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
So, Matt, I don't think there's a better place to start than Carrick and Shannon on Saturday. Limerick and Derry in the Division 3 semi-final. I suppose going back to the start of 2020, could you have envisaged that Limerick were one game away from Division 2 football?
If I'm honest, Jack, I certainly couldn't. I don't think there was anyone that could, and I allude again to an interview that Billy Lee gave at the start of 2020 when he was asked about his expectations for Division 4 that particular year, we'll say last year. Basically what he said was that he hoped that Limerick would become competitive. And by God, they certainly answered that call, but it sort of took off in the McGrath Cup. Like there were 3 victories in the McGrath Cup. You had one over Clare, which I suppose the first day out was a surprise, and then there was a victory over Waterford. But the biggest surprise of all came against Cork in the McGrath Cup final. And then there was the challenge. The challenge now was to translate the McGrath Cup form into league form, and like running off, there was no better way of responding to that challenge than chalking up 4 straight victories in the first 4 league games, which put you in a very, very strong position. And like in such a strong position that you lost game number 5 to Antrim, but you were still a point clear at the top of the table. And then the loss to Wexford. Now, the loss in Wexford in McNeville Park presented Limerick with an entirely different challenge of having to go to Sligo, backs to the wall, and they dug out a fantastic result there to be crowned champions. That was fantastic. Now they translated it into the Munster Championship, and at the risk of repeating ourselves over and over again, beat Waterford in that. It was the 3rd time that they had beaten Waterford last year, and the 3rd time they had beaten them in Flaherfield. They beat them in the McGrath Cup, the league, and the championship in the Flaherfield, and then we had this humdinger with Tipperary in the Munster semi-final. Going to extra time, losing by a point. We see Tipperary going on and winning the Munster Championship for the first time in 85 years. Then we're pitted with Tipperary in the first round of the league. But there was a challenge. The challenge now was, first of all, I would say, and it was probably a modest challenge insofar as that it was consolidated. Try and preserve junior Division 3 status. And what better way to start it than to beat Tipperary in the first round? Now there was a blip against Offaly in round 2. And then there was the huge challenge of Wicklow in Aughrim. And I was listening to an interview by John Mahan during the week, and where he singled out one of their Offaly's best performances was to go to Aughrim and win. So Aughrim has proved a graveyard for so many counties in the past, but not just to win it in Aughrim, but the manner in which they won it, Jack, it has been hugely impressive. And I suppose if we're strictly honest and not getting ahead of ourselves, we're now in bonus territory. We have consolidated Division 3 status, which was our baseline, and in many ways now it's nearly a free pass. Against Derry, it is bonus territory, because I don't honestly think there would be many around Limerick or around the country that would have said at the start of this year, of the start of this campaign, which was only about 5 weeks ago, that at the end of the day, Limerick could possibly be playing Division 2 football next year, if we're honest. So it is bonus territory, and full credit to Billy and full credit to the lads for working themselves into that position.
Yeah, and they've definitely worked very hard over the last 4 or 5 years. And just to give you, the team was announced this morning. It's the same team that was named to start against Wicklow, but obviously Tommy Griffin and Rob Burke started against Wicklow. But Donald Sullivan continues in goals. It's the same back three again: Sean O'Dea, Brian Fanning, Michael Donovan, Robbie Childs, Ian Corbett and Gordon Brown, half back line, Dara Tracy and Tommy Childs in midfield for the 4th game in a row. Keen Sheehan, Brian Donovan and Asian are in half forward line. Then you have inside forward line of Danny Neville, Killian Fahey and Hugh Burke. And notably on the substitute bench, we have a first appearance for David Connolly and Killian Ryan. And also just very strong bench in general. But on the game against Derry have, while it's been great to see Limerick win 2 games and obviously push awfully very far, Derry have definitely been the form team in the league so far, maybe across all divisions, really.
Yeah, they have been the standout performers. Of course, whilst Limerick would have set out at the start of the campaign with the modest expectation of consolidation and preserving status, Derry's ambitions would have been much more loftier altogether, insofar as that they came close to promotion last year and didn't make it. But this is Derry on the way back, because it's not very long ago since we played Derry in the Gaelic grounds and they beat us by 13 points to 1-5. I think, was it in 2017 or 2018? And that was in 2019. Mm-hmm. And that was in Division 4. So Derry had slumped to the depths, and this is slumping to the depths. You must remember also that Derry have been National Football League champions twice in this millennium already. So you can see the level of the fall from grace, from being league champions to be playing, no disrespect whatsoever, to Division 4. And they've climbed their way back out of Division 4, and now they see this opportunity of climbing their way back up to Division 2, where football is so strong in Derry, and such an important game in that county that there is expectations for Derry football, and the expectations are certainly not in the lower echelons of the league. And Rory Gallagher is the manager there. He's vastly experienced with his native Fermanagh and also with Donegal. And he is a very, very exciting team built there. And they had huge wins in the opening rounds against Longford and against Fermanagh. But the last time out, they were put to the pin of their collar, I suppose, to beat Cavan in Breffni Park. But that shouldn't be a surprise for anybody, because when we started out and looked at Division 3 for this year, most unusually for Division 3 this year, or for any year, it contained 2 of the previous year's provincial champions. You had Tipperary in Division 3 South and you had Cavan in Division 3 North, which will give you a sense of the quality that was in there. But they went to Breffni Park and they beat Cavan, and I'm quite sure that having got a result against Cavan, it will be the one real test that they really wanted, and it was a very, very important test coming into a knockout game against Limerick on Saturday.
Yeah, and it promised to be a very exciting game, Matt. Like, a lot of the talk coming into it will be about the forwards, and for Limerick, obviously, Hugh Burke and Danny Neville have carried an awful lot of load in terms of scoring. But for Derry, Shane McGuigan has 220 to his name this year, so it'd probably come down. You can expect those forwards to fire. It'll probably come down to defence, and Limerick's defence has been very solid this year.
It has been very, very, very solid, and with Ian Corbett anchoring the defence, like it has been extremely solid now, and Robert Giles and Gordon Brown are nicking in very, very nicely into the wing back positions, but we've a very, 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 very solid full back line. The vastly experienced Sean O'Dea back there, Sigerson Cup medal with UCD. You've Brian Fanning, who is absolutely in top form for the last 2 years, and you've Mike Donovan from Galway, who is playing very, 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 very well. And he'd lost his place, but he's back in it now. And so look, and Don Sullivan behind him. It's a very, very solid defence behind Jack, which is terribly important. A settled midfield. Like we have the first two names that appear to be on the team list from week to week now seem to be Dara Tracy and Tommy Childs, and rightly so. And rightly so. And it's a very, very, very important area because, you have McGuigan on the Derry side, and you Burke and you have Danny Neville and Hugh Burke and Danny Neville on the Limerick side as finishers, and Killian Fahy is no mean finisher either. But the middle third will be absolutely crucial. Who gets control of the middle third, and you know the role that two big men at the middle of the field can play in that.
Yeah, and Limerick have always been blessed with midfielders, and it's great to see another partnership coming to fruition like that. But you've kind of eased away from predictions in recent weeks, but I'm going to have to push you here because it's such a huge game for Limerick football. They've probably lived in the shadows of the hurlers for 4 or 5 years now, and the success of the hurling has been exceptional. But this is their day to shine. And look, if they don't get promotion, it won't really be a letdown because consolidating Division 3 status would have been the main aim. But with one game away from Division 2 football, can you see Limerick in the second tier in 2022?
Well, I'll tell you what I can see now. Limerick and Derry have met previously 3 times in this millennium, twice in the championship and once in the league. And on all occasions, Derry have been raging hot favourites like they have been at the for Saturday. Limerick's backs have been to the wall, Jack, twice. Really to the wall in the league twice. In the last 12 months. They were to the backs to the wall in Sligo. Their backs were to the wall in Auckland. Their backs are to the wall in Carrick and Shannon on Saturday. I think they'll give a very, very good account of themselves. I don't discount a Limerick win.
Yeah, and just on that win in Sligo, there's 9 of the same starting team. You've the likes of Danny was injured at the time. Mike Donovan has come in, Bob Childs has come in, Cian Sheehan and Brian Donovan are another 2 names that have come into the side. It's an exceptionally strong Limerick side. And then with the players off the bench, Limerick have that experience, but last year Derry only missed out on promotion from, I think it was Down beat them, and Down went through with a superior head-to-head difference. Derry had a way better scoring differential. Derry are probably that bit further along the line, though, in fairness to Limerick.
They're probably a bit further down the line, but this game on Saturday, like it is of knockout championship status. You know, it's a kind of a precursor of a championship game. Like it's knockout, it's winner take all. Win, you're up. Fortunately, lose and you stay where you are. But I think over 70 minutes, the way Limerick, the way they have responded on those two occasions, and also responded in the Munster semi-final last year. We're discounting that as well, and they were so unlucky to lose by a point after extra time. I honestly think, Jack, they have a right good chance.
Yeah, and I'll go with you. I definitely give it more than a Boxer's chance. It'll be a really tough game. Derry are definitely a step up, but hopefully this time next week we'll be discussing the possibility of Division 2 football. And just correct me here if I'm wrong, Matt. If Limerick or Offaly win this weekend, there won't be a Division 2 or 3 final.
No.
Which is very unfortunate.
Because they're entitled to a fortnight before the championship. In normal circumstances, it would probably be the following Sunday. There's been widespread criticism of this, and we've spoken about it. This has been ill-conceived. Tomás O'Shea was on the same path today. He very, very critical of the fact that there is no league final. Like Colin Cooper, and who's to contradict the great man? He was very, very critical of it on Ali and Sunday League a couple of weeks ago. I can't understand, and it's the same in hurling. Why we can't get a Sunday, why we can't get a date that we can finish the leagues like we normally do. That you're going to be promoted is fine, and the records will show joint champions. It amuses me. It amuses me that at a time when the GAA are refusing to accept and are scrapping joint captains, that they're creating joint winners. It beggars belief.
I never thought of it like that, to be honest with you, Matt. But look, for Limerick anyway, it won't matter whether there's a final or not. Obviously, prefer it, but to be in Division 2 is obviously the main aim for Billy Lee, and it's been an incredible year so far. And
absolutely, and Billy will see this as he'll see it for what it is, as absolutely ideal preparatory game for the clash with Waterford 2 weeks later in the Munster Championship. Now that the business of consolidation in Division 3 has been put to bed, as I said from the outset, it's bonus territory, and I think Limerick will give it a good old lash, Jack.
Yeah, it's a free hit for Limerick, and I definitely wouldn't be backing against Billy Lee in this current side. But look, that game is 4 o'clock, Avon Money Park, Sean McDermott, Carrigan Shannon, on Saturday at 4 p.m. on GAA Go. And if you're one of the lucky people to get a ticket, all the best show. There should be 200 there in attendance to give that small bit of a buzz. But look, we're giving cautious votes here to Billy Lee and his sides to get back-to-back promotions. But it definitely promises to be a tough game. On Sunday, the Limerick Senior Hurlers finish off their league campaign. They'll forfeit their title after holding it for 2 years. They play Westmeath at 2:15 in Mullingar. I suppose it's not a dead rubber, Matt, but it's all about last week. It's all about the Cork game, really. If Limerick don't win in Westmeath, it'll be catastrophic to even consider that. But just focus on last week's game. They were back to their best. Limerick hurling are back, and they're probably All-Ireland favourites again after that performance Saturday night.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. There definitely were shades of what has made them All-Ireland champions twice in the last 3 years. Very, very, very hard to know where Cork are at. We certainly know what they were at in terms of personnel, in that there was a lot of key players missing. What was their state of mind going into the game? Good question. But if this was an addition for championship places, for the fringe players in Cork, I certainly think it didn't work out in their favour, because there were times in the game when they were overrun, and we talk about Limerick scoring 33 points. Jack, they had 20 wides. That's 53 scoring chances in less than roughly 75 minutes of hurling, which is phenomenal. Look, it's very encouraging. First of all, it's encouraging to end the losing sequence, which was important, or the not winning sequence. Secondly, it was important to get a win over one of the big counties prior to going into the championship. And thirdly, it gives you an opportunity to get the momentum going, rebuild the confidence. That's if it was ever lost, which I doubt if it was. But, confidence and momentum going into the championship, especially when you're placing Cork in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, it was very important to get that win, and it was comprehensive as well. And as you said, while the fringe players for Cork definitely didn't stand up and deliver, for Limerick, you can't look further than Colin Coughlin on his debut, wing back, 2 points in the first half. And probably the biggest compliment you can play to Colin is that you wouldn't have picked him out, that he was a 19-year-old 4 days away from sitting the leaving cert.
Yeah, well, I had the privilege of seeing Colin Coughlin making his senior club championship debut with Ballybrown, and I certainly had the privilege now of seeing, and a privilege it is to see him making his inter-county senior debut from the start against Cork. And of course, what he has done, of course, is that he has contributed to giving John Kiley a bigger selection headache than he already had. And look, it was an excellent performance by Colin Coughlin on his debut. And the manner, and we shouldn't colour his performance now by his 2 points in a minute. That all that did was embellish it. It embellished a very, very solid and a very, very good performance by a young man, 4 days out from his leaving certificate, not long out of minor ranks, hardly 19 years of age. It was just incredible, and it augurs so well for the future of Limerick hurling. It's a testimony to the good work of the academy and what they've done in bringing players through. But it's also testimony, and we sometimes seem to forget this. It's also testament to the great work that's been done in the Ballybrown club to bring through a player like this. And Ballybrown have been premier minor hurling champions in Limerick for the last 2 years. That doesn't happen by accident, Jack. That happens as a result of extremely hard work, and we all know the type of work that's going in down in Ballybrown, and fair credit to him. And all Colin Coughlin is a microcosm of what is really going on, and all that is going on, first of all in Ballybrown Club and also in the academy. Now, we should also mention Cathal O'Neill. Cathal O'Neill he made his debut against Galway. It didn't work out for him. He made a cameo appearance in Walsh Park. I think it was nearly injury time when he came on. He came on against Cork last Saturday night, and he certainly showed us the Cathal O'Neill that we know he is. His first point was an excellent score, absolutely excellent score. Now he tacked on a second point, and it augurs so well for the future of Limerick hurling that you've guys like these coming through who are not lost at this level at such a young age. And you can also throw in Brian O'Grady and throw in Mark Quinlan. These lads coming through, they are going to be putting pressure on the established players, and it's nothing but good, Jack.
Yeah, it's definitely not but good, and a huge shout out to those players that have hit the ground running and really taken it in their stride, and for John Kiley for trusting in them. I won't ask you for a prediction for the team this weekend because we haven't been very accurate. But do you think John Kiley will go again with his strongest side and then give them a break before the championship, or will he give more fringe players an opportunity this weekend? How do you see it going?
We have been so shamefully wrong of predicting what John Kiley will do that I'm loath to go there even, Jack. we've got to factor in a couple of things. We've got to factor in, does he give more fringe players a challenge, a chance? Are there any other players that need to get a debut or a first start? Or does he go and sort of put out a team that in many ways will mirror the championship team? You know, there's no doubt now, 4 games into the league, John Kiley, Paul Kinnerk, and the backroom team, I think they have a fair base. They have a fair idea of what their team is going to be. I would be surprised. I'll take one stab at who might be on, and there's a stab at who won't be on. I would imagine will be Sean Finn. Sean picked up an injury against Cork, and a key player like Sean Finn cannot see him being risked. I think that's one change that will be made. Now, I'm sure there'll be a raft of changes. But I think John Kiley will pay the respect to Westmeath that they're entitled to. Like, Cork went to Westmeath last year now. I know they beat him they beat him 31 points in Páirc Uí Chaoimh recently. They were lucky to come out of Mullingar with a 4-point win last year. But Westmeath are struggling. They're struggling. Life has been a struggle in Division 1. But they will be trying to get something out of this game, and they'll be trying to get a positive performance and a positive frame of mind, because they're facing into a playoff, a relegation playoff with Laois. You know, and that's another thing. Like, it's amazing that dates can be found for relegation playoffs, and they couldn't be found for finals. So they're facing Laois in a relegation playoff. So Shane O'Brien will be looking for a performance, and he will want to get as much as he possibly can out of the Limerick game. So I don't think they'll beat Limerick, but I think they could make it tricky for Limerick for a considerable amount of the game, depending, of course, Jack, on what side John Kiley puts out. But you'd have to say that any team he'll put out from the squad he has is going to be a strong team.
Yeah, there's no weak players.
Does he recall Seamus Flanagan? Does he recall Kyle Hayes? You know, there's a lot of imponderables out there. It'll be very, very interesting to see what team he names on Friday night.
Yeah, definitely interesting. One name that you'll probably be looking out for is Cian Lynch, who has been a name to look out for the last 6-7 years at this stage. But just a word on his performance against Cork, and we kind of were talking about it beforehand, but like, he kind of goes under the radar sometimes, Cian, and then like sometimes he does that work that isn't seen, but when his work is seen, there is probably no one in the country that can compete with him like he was last Saturday. Well,
I suppose the best way to describe it was that Cian Lynch was Cian Lynch. I just thought he was phenomenal. But as you said, for the reasons that you said, in most games, I think he never drops below an incredible standard. It might go unnoticed sometimes, but you know, his stuff is rather over stuff. Week in, week out. His box office. There's no doubt at all about it. Like, if you're a hurling fan, and you want to see the top players, they don't come better than Cian Lynch.
No, and it's like the effect that he has on the team around him is clearly evident in how Limerick play. But the effect he has in the opposition team, it's kind of a case of what do we do with this fella, like, regardless of what we do. Because if you double up on him, he'll find the spare teammate. On his day, he's unmarkable, and there's a few players like that. It'll be interesting to see if he is named from the start and how Westmeath will try and cope with it. But just finally, on the Westmeath game, you think for probably a straightforward win for Limerick to round off the campaign with 2 wins?
I do. I think it will be the ideal. It will be the ideal send off of the league. Going into the championship and ending up mid table. All right, there'll be a certain element of disappointment around among the fans that Limerick haven't completed the three in a row. But like, all bets are off this year for the simple reason that the type of experimentation, and we discussed it last week, Jack, that John Kiley indulged in, we'll say, during the league. Normally that would have been done in the Munster League, and to a lesser extent in the Championship, where the team formation are in the league, and to a lesser extent in the league, where during which the team for the Championship would emerge. But with the league running straight into the Championship this year, it's totally different.
Yeah, and it's probably better off to finish the campaign with 2 wins and have them 3 losses behind you than to win the first 2 and then lose the final few games. So that's a positive for John Kiley. But as we said, they're going to have to get over Westmeath first, because anything other than a win in Westmeath, and no respect to Westmeath, but anything other than a win in Mullingar will be detrimental to Limerick, you would imagine, just for confidence. But moving on from the hurling, we'll go on to the Camogie, and we have the junior side are in semi-final action in Division 3. This Saturday they are playing Wexford. But before we get into that game, just a word on the seniors last weekend that pushed the All-Ireland champions Kilkenny all the way in their league quarter-final in Burr. They were winning at the first water break, they were winning at half-time, and I suppose just experience and that clinical nature in front of goal shone. But for Pat Ryan and that senior side, it's a huge confidence boost going into the championship.
A massive confidence boost. Actually, I was in commentary the day that they played Galway, and on the face of it, it looked a very, very disappointing result. And I look back on the game since, Jack, and I wasn't as near as despondent as I was during the game and in the immediate aftermath of it in Kilmallock. I thought there were a lot of positives about Limerick's approach, about their intensity, about their competitiveness, the type of thing that you can hardly drill into them. They either have it or they haven't it. And I felt if they could replicate that and against Kilkenny and take their chances, that they could. I didn't expect that they would beat Kilkenny, if I'm honest. But that they certainly would push Kilkenny, and that it wouldn't be a repetition of the Galway game, because Galway got 3 goals, Jack, and they're there for anybody to see. There were 3 goals for the ages almost, in their creation and execution, and the one from Niamh Kilkenny is a contender for goal of the year, and the season is scarcely up and running. So, and look, Limerick outscored Kilkenny. It was 210 to 13 points. It was 13 points to 12. So it's the concession of those goals is something that Pat Ryan will be working on. Now, I don't know if there was any defence could have stopped the Galway goals for the reasons I said, but certainly the timing of the goals the last day against Kilkenny, there could be a slight suspicion of possibly not switching on quick enough after the water breaks, because both of them came in the immediate aftermath of the water break. So it may be a concentration issue, and that's something that Pat Ryan will be. But fair play to Pat Ryan, fair play to the girls. They could have dropped their heads after the Galway game, and then you're playing the All-Ireland semi-finalists, finalists, runners-up one week, and then the randomness of the draw pits you against the final, the champions the following week. You'd wonder what you did. Were you suffering from the sins of a past life or something when you get a draw like that? But the manner in which they responded and really put it up to the champions. And as I said, when I look back on the Galway game, I wasn't near as despondent. as I was when watching it in real time. You get caught up on the day when you're up in at that commentary box and everything is happening so fast. But when I looked it back in the cold light of day here at home, I was near as despondent, and not at all. I'm not at all surprised at the performance against Kilkenny, because we came out of Father McNamara Park 2 weeks ago, or nearly 3 weeks ago now, with the victory over Clare. There was so much to be confident about, and suddenly you had this thing with Galway. The Galway thing wasn't as big a letdown as the scoreline might suggest. And I think the Kilkenny result and the performance against Kilkenny in Bor last Saturday has borne that out.
Yeah, and look, it was a loss. Unfortunately, it was a loss. But it definitely give great confidence to the junior side that face Wexford this Saturday in Bor in the same venue in the Division 3 semi-final. I'll just go through the team there that was named last night. Leo Carroll in goals, Megan Ryan, Niamh Tuda and Yvonne Lee in the full-back line. You've Grace Lee, Eve Coughlin and Shauna Cunningham in the half-back line. Aisling Cunningham captains the side midfield alongside Stephanie Wolfe. Eva Curtin, Alva Larkin and Enya Harrington in the centre-forward line. And then in the inside line, you've Valerie Sheehan, Elena Mulcahy and Ciara English. And it's a very strong side that Pat Ryan has named. And it's very noticeable that there is no really crossover between the senior and junior sides, and you can still name a team as strong as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Anya Cunningham, who was quite impressive for the seniors in the 3 games, was part of the junior team in the first round. That's the only one that has made the step up. But there have been a number of hands put up, and Pat Ryan will be looking for more of that tomorrow in Bor. And he's going to be without Michelle Curtin. Michelle, unfortunately, was sent off in the game against Waterford, and she's going to sit this one out. Michelle Curtin is a big loss now. She's replaced by her sister, Aoife, who is coming on and who started in the first game against Clare in Kilmallock. Now, at the last minute in the victory over Waterford, Roisin Mann had to cry off from full back. And Niamh Tuda came in from Napier and did quite well, and she's retained. But see that Roisin is back on the bench, and because Roisin had 2 very, very, very solid performances in the first rounds against Clare and against Carlow. But there are a lot of players there in that particular team, that have featured in all 3 games to date. So there is a settled look about that team. A settled look. And now Enya Harrington, who's the free taker, didn't feature in the first game. But she came in when Anya Cunningham was promoted to the seniors. Now, Elby Larkin was playing on the wing. Now she's playing at centre forward. From what I've seen of her there, she's very, very effective in that position. She's a very, very young player. Of course, was only minor 2 years ago, and like Valerie Shanahan had the ball in the Waterford net after 17 seconds. Is a very, very, very dangerous forward, and Elena Mulcahy full forward. Like it's a very, very strong. It's a strong team. Now what they're facing in Wexford, it is very, very hard to know. Wexford, they were in a 3-county group with Armagh and Down. Now they beat Down convincingly enough. This would be Down's second team now. They beat Down convincingly enough in Tagman and in the first round, and then went to Armagh and just won by a point. And now, you see, the troubles in Wexford Camogie over the last couple of years have been very, very well documented. And there has been fewer falls from grace in sport than that of Wexford Camogie. Less than 10 years ago, 2011, on the same day in Croke Park, Wexford won the All-Ireland senior and intermediate camogie titles on the one day. Now they're playing at intermediate and at junior level. And but the trajectory has turned for Wexford, and it's an upward trajectory now because in my view, from following Division 2, I think Wexford will be very, very strong favourites to win Division 2 and to get back up. They're playing down in the semi-final this weekend. They had a huge win over Westmeath last week. And you must remember that Westmeath came to Bruff last year and scampered back to the Midlands after beating Limerick in the championship by a goal. So that'll give you an idea. And so what Limerick will be facing will be what would normally, or what in the past would have been Wexford's intermediate side. So, but not that they should have any fears about facing intermediate sides, because in round 2, they went to Carlow to face Carlow, who are also an intermediate side and who are playing in the intermediate championship. And we know how well they did. Carlow had to rely on a last-minute point to get a share of the spoils. So you're going to ask me to make a prediction.
I want you.
And I'm going to second guess you on that one. But you know, I find it very, very hard to call it.
Yeah.
But I would think if you go on forum, you know, and when teams are in different groups, it's very, very hard to judge what is the particular standard in that group. But I'm calling for Limerick to shade it slightly. Very tight, should be tight. You never get anything easy from Wexford. Their seniors came to Croke, was it 2 years ago? You know, they were at their lowest ebb, and they made it tricky for Limerick for a long period. You'll never get anything from easy with the great tradition of camogie that's in Wexford. But you know, I'm very hopeful that we'll get a result in that one.
Yeah, you would be hopeful just with the performances, especially the draw against Carlow, who are an intermediate side. And if they do get through this final, they'll play either Carlow or Armagh in the final. And Armagh won the Premier Intermediate All-Ireland last year. Like, so the cream has definitely risen to the top in the Division 3. But I suppose it can't be overstated just how much of a loss Michelle Curtin is. And looking at the incident that she's banned for, it's very disappointing because it doesn't warrant a ban of any sort, not to mind the ban she got. But look, the team will rally around that fact. They have good players in replacement, so you can definitely see Limerick getting through this, and we'll have the first Limerick side into final with their game on at 1:00 on Saturday.
Yeah, I've seen all 3 games. I have seen 2 of them live, 2 of their games live, and I have seen the other on recording. And you know, I spoke about the commitment and the competitive instinct that was in that the senior team have shown. This is something that Pat Ryan has brought to both squads. That they're training together, and you can see it. It will not. I guarantee you one thing: if Limerick lose to Wexford, it will not be for the want of effort, and it will not be for the want of commitment. It will not be for the want of competitiveness.
Yeah,
once you've those ducks in a row, you're in with a good chance.
Yeah, I've been around Joel a few times to see him training. There's definitely huge commitment and huge drive inside there. And a shout out to clubmate John Blackwell, who is the strength and conditioning coach with that side. Best of luck tomorrow, and hopefully they can be the first Limerick side into a league final in 2021. Moving on to another side that are looking to get into a league semi-final, and that's the ladies side, who faced Leitrim. Before we get into that game, we'll look at the game last week, and they beat Carlow 2-7-8. And Donal Ryan alluded to it, that they made hard work of the game, but they had a job to do, and they got the job done, and that is the main thing, and they're into semi-final now.
They did, and you know, I would expect that. And talking to him, I don't think that Donal Ryan, in his heart of hearts, was expecting anything easy from Carlow. They played awfully in the first round. They made life pretty difficult for him. They scored 116 against Offaly, which is it's an Offaly team that play at intermediate level. And by the way, now as we're talking about it, Jack, Limerick are the only junior county that is left in the league at any level. Offaly were intermediate, and like where was this free scoring Carlow that scored 116 in defeat and could only muster 8 points, 3 from play against Limerick? Where did they go? I'll tell you where they went. They were swallowed up by a very tight, organised, disciplined Limerick defence. That's where they went, and Limerick got 2 very, very good goals. Amy Ryan was involved in both of them. I thought the first goal, and I've looked back on it. It was a sublime effort. The way she slipped the ball into the path of Andrea O'Sullivan's, and Andrea O'Sullivan's finish matched the pass. It was an exquisite piece of play. Now, Amy Ryan was involved again with the second goal, putting it across for Iris Kennelly, who was returned to the side this year and is really getting up to the pace of things now. Is a big addition. Now, I see for the trip to Leitrim, the trip to Milltown in North Galway on Sunday, that Rachel O'Dell from Mona Lean is starting. Very exciting young players. I might be subject to correction on this, but I think Rachel O'Dell has very, very strong links with Drumbradford. Family links with Drumbradford, I'm pretty sure. Other than that, there are some. There's one there are 2 notables when I saw this Limerick team, and there are similarities in them now, Jack. First of all, and he's been totally consistent. In the aftermath of the Camogie game last week, Donald Ryan did not include Roisin Ambrose or Anya Cunningham from the start. Now, he did give him cameo appearances towards the finish when Limerick were closing out the game, and he's going down that path again this week, in that Yvonne Lee has been omitted. Now, Yvonne Lee was consistent performer in both the games against Offaly and against Carlow, and she's been omitted, and this time because of her Camogie commitments in Borough on Saturday, I presume. Now, it means a bit of a reshuffle. I would have thought in such circumstances that we might have seen a direct swap, in that Rebecca Daly, who occupied that position very, very effectively last year and was named in one of the teams of the year, would have got the nod there. But Donald has opted to move his captain, Niamh McCarthy, back into cornerback beside her sister Maeve, and Caroline Hickey, who was having a fine season at midfield. She's gone to centre back, and Roisin Ambrose is recalled at midfield, but there's still no starting place for Anya Cunningham. I'm a bit surprised at that now. Katie Heelan, Andrea O'Sullivan, and Rachel O'Dell form the half-forward line. But I always say anyway, a manager and his management team, they see these players in training, and they invariably they know what they're doing. Full forward line is unchanged. Lauren Ryan from Adair, Amy Ryan of Ula, and Iris Kennelly. There are plenty scores in that full forward line. But Jack, they're facing a very, very strong Leitrim team. But this is what you have to expect when you go to the knockout stages of championship. Knockout stages of any competition, and in this case, the league. Leitrim play at intermediate. They've been hugely impressive in the scores that they have been racking up against Fermanagh, Louth, and most recently Antrim. Limerick played them in Winter Leitrim last year. Now, it was at a stage immediately pre-lockdown when Limerick were out of the competition, and Leitrim had a lot to play for at that particular time, and Leitrim scored a very, very big win. Now, that big win was in contrast to 2019, when Leitrim visited Askeaton, your own neck of the woods, Jack, and it was Limerick who won. Limerick won a tight game and won a good game. So obviously you have to factor in to a certain degree that when they met last year, long journey up, Limerick were out of the competition. But having said that, we cannot detract for 1 minute from the size of the challenge that Leitrim are going to present on Sunday. There are many similarities when we were discussing when we were discussing the senior footballers going against the bang-in form Derry. The ladies senior footballers are going against the bang-in form Leitrim, and that there's no use in saying otherwise.
Yeah, and I just want to look through the Leitrim results there because they've been really impressive. And as you said, they've won their 3 games, but they beat Antrim 5-9 to 111, and then they beat Derry 118-7. So in the first 2 games, you can kind of see the first game it was mostly goals. Second game, 118 is incredible scoring, and then they finished off with a mix of both in the final game, 3-14 to 3-6 against Louth. So this Leitrim side can do it either way. If you're given chances for goals, they'll take them. If they can't get that, they'll be able to kick the ball over the bar. So it's a huge, huge task for Donald Ryan's side. But as you said, as the last junior side left, and he said it himself, it is a free hit for Limerick.
It's a free hit for Limerick, and I think Donald Ryan has 2 reasons to be pleased. First of all, he has reason to be pleased that they've got themselves to this stage, and secondly, he'll have to be very, very pleased with the type of games and the quality of the games that he's getting in the league, because Carlow will be the only junior team that they will have played. They will be playing Carlow in the last round of the championship. I think it's in early August, and but they're heading in to play Wicklow in the first round of the championship in about 3 weeks' time. Now, Wicklow are already installed, for whatever reason, as favourites for the junior football this year. But, Donald, we'll be getting these quality games against Offaly, good Shamasl with Carlow last week. And now, Leitrim will be another step up. Or at least they'll be on the same level as Offaly. So getting really, really good games. No substitute for good games, Jack. And I think he'll be delighted with it. If you ask me, will they beat Leitrim? I'm not confident that they will, if I'm honest. I think Leitrim will probably shade it. But I think Limerick can put in the type of performance that they can take a lot out of.
Yeah, and with the championship just around the corner, obviously you want to win, you want to get into finals, but performances is probably something that Donald Ryan, his manager, will have pinpointed. And if you can get a performance and the result doesn't come with it, so be it. You're preparing for championship. But we've been wrong more often than not on this podcast, so maybe it could be a good omen that you're going against Limerick on that occasion. For anyone that is looking to watch that game, again, there's 100, 200 people allowed into games. Tickets are like gold dust these days, but it's available on the little National Football League portal. It's on a 1:30 this Sunday. Just go into the ladies football website and you'll see a link in the top right corner, and you can head in and watch the game there for free, and the game will be available later on YouTube. I suppose coming away from the county action, Matt, we have a county final from 2020 to look forward to this weekend. Crokilfinney against Patrickswell in the Gaelic grounds. The semi-finals were only played on Monday, the bank holiday Monday. In the first game, Crokilfinney won 17 to 10 point winners over Clahon. And then the second game, Patrickswell were 3-15 to 11 winners over Broadford. I'm fairly sure you said Croke would win their game, but I think you sided with Broadford. So it was a surprise for you in the Gaelic rounds in the semi-finals match, yeah?
There was two surprises, really, Jack. There was a surprise in the first game in that with the ease in which Croke Kilfinny won it. I certainly thought going into the game that Clahan would really put it up to them, but unfortunately they didn't. Clahan or Croke Kilfinny took control of the game right from the start and held that mastery right through. Now they were hit with a blow during the week, on the lead up to the semi-final, in that they lost Tom McMahon, who picked up a nasty leg injury, which will keep him out from the final as well. And of course, he's the brother of handball star Martina McMahon. Now they were lucky in the circumstances in that they had somebody of the caliber of 2007 Young Hurler of the Year, former All-Star Seamus Hickey, to deputise at centre back. That's a kind of an abundance of riches that few junior clubs can have. But Seamus Hickey on the programme was nominated for left corner forward. And personally, when I saw the team list, I said, I can't see that happening anyway. And especially with Tom McMahon out, it's somebody like Seamus Hickey. But they were full value. Having said that it was an easier win for Croke Kilfinny than I expected. They were full value for it. In Jack Linehan, they had somebody like who knows where the posts are, and he's just not a finisher alone. His approach play is very, very good, and his overall contribution around the field is very, very good. They are an exciting Croke Kilfinny side. Of course, they're going for the first championship ever. It's only their second final. They appeared in the final in 2005, and they were beaten by Hospital Herbertstown. Now, they will carry high hopes into the final, and rightly so. Now they face Patrickswell, and Tom Clancy and I did have a discussion at halftime during commentary last week about Patrickswell. We were crystal ball gazing into the second game later that afternoon. Now, whilst I admit I expected that Broadford would win it, they were very, very far off it. But when you're facing a team like Patrickswell, it comes with a certain element of a health warning, because Patrickswell, the Piercig, Kilmallock, Doon, they're the top clubs in the country, and for a reason. No matter what team they put out, whether it's a second string or a third string, Jack, they're all well able to hurl. And they've all been well experienced. And these are the top clubs in our county for a reason. It's not by accident. It's because of all the hard work that they have been doing down through the years, right from under 6, right up to senior. So there is no such thing as in those teams, there's no what you would call fillers. Fellas filling jerseys. They're all well able to hurl. And if you look at the Patrickswell team, Patrickswell have been knocking around. They've been knocking around minor and under 21 championships there for a number of years. Going to the concluding stages, lost a Premier Minor final to Garrisblan, a Classic final. Lost an under 21 final to Doon, and a certain amount of those players are that don't find their way onto the senior squad immediately are cutting their teeth at this level. And then of course you have the like of Barry Foley. Barry Foley, veteran, and still appears to have the same enthusiasm for the game, and still is the same threat to any defence. You're Peter Harty, who's been around a long time, like Barry Foley. You've that bit of experience, James Carrick at the back, to bring the younger players along. Like this is all the ingredients, Jack, of being a cracking final. It's not a foregone conclusion that Croke Kilfinney will win it. I think this one is going to be very, very, very tight, very, very, very hard to call. I possibly think that maybe because of the opportunity to get their name on the cup for the first time might be just what would see Croke Kilfinney through. Yeah,
that desire certainly be there for Croke. But just before we really go into predictions there, just on Barry Foley, I suppose I was born in 96, so 20 years after he was instrumental in that win against Clare in the semi-final, and then he kind of led Patrickswell to a first title in a number of years in 2016. That was the 20th anniversary of the 96 year where they got to that Ireland final. It'd be a nice 25th anniversary from the year Limerick had in 96 to win a junior A championship with Patrickswell, and it'd be a nice way to go out in high. Not saying that Barry doesn't have hurling in him, but if you could go out in high, that'd be a nice way to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but if they do it, there's no guarantee that Barry Foley will go out.
I don't think so. But I think if you're afforded a chance to go out in high, you might take it. But you're leaning slightly towards a Croke on this.
There was a lot of things I liked about Croke. Now I didn't see the second game, but there were a lot of things I liked about him. But they'll have to be very, very wary of Patrickswell for the reasons that I said. They all have a basic standard of hurling, and most of them have this winning mentality. This thing will do it for the jersey, the blue and gold. Like Patrickswell aren't Limerick's most successful senior club for nothing, Jack.
Yeah, and you spoke about that production line coming through, but then on the other side, someone like Seamus Hickey would be desperate to help Croke the first title. And I thought last year before the lockdown, I thought Croke were the form team in the championship. So if they can rediscover that form, which they did, obviously on Monday, but finals are one-off games. Anything can happen. So in a word,
yeah, I actually picked them up in 2019, Jack. I picked up Croke in 2019. Actually wrote about it in 2019. I saw him in the Southwest Championship. And I thought all the metrics were there and were in place for a real challenge at junior A level, and did qualify it by saying that I thought 2019 was too soon for him. And if I was pushed, I'd have thought possibly the 2020 might have been too soon for him. Like they have 8 players on their squad that won county minor A medals in 2017. That year they were joined up with Rathkeale. But that will give you an idea of the great work that they have done in bringing the players through. It's grand to have, win a minor title and said, job done nearly. But these have jealously and painstakingly brought these players through, and these players are to the fore. Like Jack Linehan was one of those. And his twin brother Barry, they were among those. Josh O'Connor, they were all on that minor team. There's 8 of them on the panel of that minor team. 6 of them are starting. James Lanigan, who both his parents are, they have a very interesting mix at midfield in that they have James Lanigan, and both his parents come from Kilkenny. And they have Adam Shaniger, whose father played underage football with Roscommon. So there's a bit of a metropolitan look to their centre of the field.
Yeah, but in a word, or maybe 2 words for Kilfinney, who will come away with the game? We'll leave it at that, and we'll see how well your predictions go.
It will have to be 2 words, Jack.
Croke Kilfinney. I'll go for Patrickswell, just to go against you, because I like doing that.
On the hope of having a row next week.
Please God, anyway, people have been missing out on it. Before we go, and that's our games, and Like, there's so many games. On Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, you have the Camogie side looking to get into a league final. Then at 4 o'clock, you have the senior footballers hoping to gain promotion, back-to-back promotions. And then on Sunday, you have the ladies footballers at 1:30, again, trying to get into a league final. And then the Junior A hurling final at 7 o'clock. On 7 or half 7, Matt? I think it's 7.
7
o'clock in the LIT Gate Grounds, Crow Kilfinney versus Patrickswell. Loads took forward to in them games, but I suppose before we go, I know we're well over the hour mark this stage. During the week, we got news that Sean Tobin's career had come to an end for both club and county, and he's a player that deserves a tribute for all that he's done for definitely for Limerick, but for Maru as well. He's been a real stalwart for the club and county.
Absolutely, Jack. And I suppose let's get the negative bit of it out of the way first. I'm so sorry to see that Sean Tobin has deemed it necessary to call time on his both club and inter-county career, and particularly the reason for it, which he cited in his post, that it was recurring injury. And like not only has Maru and Limerick lost somebody, the game of hurling has lost somebody that he can ill afford to do without. Like Sean Tobin was one of the most exciting players, one of the most exciting forwards that we've seen in our county for a long time. He has made up to 40 appearances with seniors between championship and league, and thankfully he's graced his career with a Munster senior medal in 2013, which was nothing more than he deserved. He served Limerick well at minor and at under 21 level before breaking through to the senior team. And like the skills that Sean Tobin possessed was something that players would die for, and his accuracy and his scoring ability and his scoring prowess and his consistency in scoring when the target was in sight. Sean Tobin is a huge loss to the game, and I suppose there's no place it will be felt more so than in Maru Boher, who he has served with such distinction for so long. And thankfully, he's exiting the stage, at least with a county medal in his locker. He was on that team in 2017. He was the key figure in that team in 2017. They drew with Gary Spillane on a Sunday. It had to be replayed the following Wednesday night, which Maru Boher won, because they were facing into the club championship the following Sunday, when they had to travel to Ennis to take on Kilmaley, and lost by a point after extra time, which was a phenomenal performance by Sean Tobin and the Maru Boher club, and it is something that shouldn't be happening. That's another issue. It's something that shouldn't be happening in our games. That there'd be 3 games in such a short space of time. But that is in the past. What we say to Sean Tobin, one of the most exciting players, I suppose, that ever graced the green jersey and graced the club scene in Limerick. And like what we say to Sean is, have a wonderful retirement. We know you won't be lost from the game, because he has already taken up a coaching role, Jack, in that he's coaching Croom intermediate hurlers this year, with whom we wish him the very, very best of luck in starting off in this phase of his career. And I suppose on behalf of all our listenership and our viewership, we say to Sean, thanks for the memories.
Yeah, and there's lots of memories, and I'll be speaking to Sean hopefully later today or later on the week, and we'll have an interview with him. But there was moments that stood out in Sean Tobin's career, and I just saw a tweet from Tom Clancy during the week, and he just pointed out he was at 4 Maru Boher games. in 2019-20 season, and he said in the 4 games he played, Sean Tobin got 15 points, 10 points, 2, 11, and 11. He was always a constant source of scorers from Maru Boher, and while some lads aren't guilty, because all these top county lads always perform at the highest level for their clubs, but Sean Tobin really took Maru Boher by the scruff of the neck, and as you said, he got him that county title in 2017. But for me, I'll always remember him in 2013 and 2014. They were kind of the first 2 Limerick sides of my generation that kind of really looked like they could win All-Ireland. They bridged that 17-year gap for a Munster Championship in 2013, and then very memorably in 2014, I remember Sean was one of the players that really stood up against Kilkenny, and in the lash and rain and the wind and everything, you could just see his blue boots sparkling. I was up in the Hogan stand in the upper tier. You could just see his boots through it all. He scored a couple of points that day, and he was always a man for the big occasions, really. Yeah,
but I suppose one great characteristic, of course, and you quoted Tom Clancy there, and Tom's figures, I've no doubt, are correct. But it just gives you a sense that for Sean Tobin, there was no such thing as an off day. Totally consistent. And that was a phenomenal scoring rate in 4 games. He was always to the fore, even though in the replay, looking back on the replay, a bit against Garrisblan in 2017, a bit of the limelight was taken from him that day by none other than his brother Pat, who put over 8 points, as far as I remember, that night against Garrisblan. But like Sean Tobin has been the epitome of consistency, and like his scoring prowess was second to none, Jack.
Yeah, and you had a nice kind of saying there a few minutes, just for thanks for all the memories, and I know I interrupt you with more, but like you could talk about Sean Tobin all day, but as I said, we will be talking to him. But like you said, thanks for the memories, Sean. I'm sure he'll go on to bigger things with Croom, and I'm sure Maru Boher will be forever grateful for his contribution, and he'll have led for that new generation of players coming through for years to come. So once more, thanks for all the memories, Sean. Best of luck in retirement. I'm sure he'll make a great coach, as good a coach as he was a player. A huge thank you to everyone for tuning in. An hour and 12 I have here on my clock. I suppose we spent long enough not being able to talk about GAA, Matt, so we won't mind going over the hour today. We've a load of games to forward to this week. Hopefully we will have 2 league finals to forward to and a promotion for Limerick. But until next week, thank you very much, man, and we'll talk soon.